for those of us in Nigeria, you remember on the inauguration day of our current president, he made an announcement, and that changed everything, right? That the subsidy of fuel was on, yes, petrol had been removed. Now, this is not about whether it was right or wrong. Our own interest here is in the fact that there are things that happen that suddenly disrupt our plans, disrupt the plans for our organizations. And it is those things that kill businesses, literally. It is those changes that kill careers, the ones we did not prepare for. Okay. And it is when you get into the study of strategic leadership, or especially strategic foresight, that you realize that the data actually says that things are more likely to change than they are likely to remain the same. Over 20 years ago, I read Who Moved My Cheese for the first time. And I was, it was mind shifting so much that I actually shared the content, the principles with all of our staff. Honestly, they keep moving the cheese. Actually, change is more predictable than stability. Okay, so when you become a strategic leader, you're then more sensitive to change. You actually expect change. In fact, where you can, you initiate the change. So the big question right now is, what similar announcements to those of the presidents of Argentina and Nigeria are likely to be made in 2024, right? What similar announcement or events are likely to disrupt our plans in 2024? We have the Israel-Hamas war going on. We have the Russia-Ukraine war going on. And they broke out suddenly. Am I right? Yep. Unexpected. Took people by surprise. So what makes a leader strategic? Because our interest here is leadership. What makes a leader strategic is the ability to create success, both in normal and rapidly changing situations. That's important. Most people can create success in stable conditions, normal conditions, and that's fine. But when you have those rapidly changing situations, that's where you need strategic leaders. More often than not, they are better prepared for those rapidly changing situations. And then they pivot more quickly. You know what it means to pivot? Like if you stand on the heel of your foot, and you rotate, like you turn 90 degrees. That's what it means to pivot. And strategic leaders are able to do that more easily. The only thing is, research says 87% of leaders are operational leaders. Only 13% are strategic. Maybe not, plus or minus a little bit, okay? So what makes you strategic as a leader is the fact that you can create success in normal and rapidly changing situations, and that you can create success not only in the present, but also in the future. That's why we're discussing 2024, right? And in fact, the more strategic you become, the longer your view. So you're going to be thinking 5 years, thinking 10 years ahead, thinking 20, 30 years ahead, knowing that the future is actually created today. Okay? Mauro Guillen said, very much as with human vision, companies and other types of organizations cannot be effective if they do not sense, interpret, and act on the weak signals coming from the periphery of their immediate area of focus. Let me read it again. Very much as with human vision, companies and other types of organizations cannot be effective if they do not sense, interpret, and act on the weak signals coming from the periphery of their immediate area of focus. What are the weak signals coming? Sometimes they're in the news, right? A small decision made by government, right? Decision made by the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK, right? Or the Secretary of Treasury or the Federal Minister for Finance, a little, announcement somewhere, or a new law that has just been passed. Sorry, a new law, a bill that is being discussed at the National Assembly. Strategic leaders pay attention to those and they can quickly pick them, while they are coming as weak signals. Mauro Guillen said, weak signals coming from the periphery of their immediate area of focus. So if we, honestly, some of the things that will happen next year, the indications are already coming. Now, if we will pay attention, right? George Taylor said in Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, to kill a mockingbird, people generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for. We call it cognitive bias, right? It's the law of recognition. So what's inside already determines what you see on the outside, but there's usually more. There's usually more. So there is that thing that I call what focus does, the elimination that focus does to our vision. So however small something is, the closer you bring it to your eye, the more it actually prevents you from seeing a lot of what is behind it, right? So that's what focus does. It has its pros, it has its cons, right? So pay attention to look at things we've not been focusing on to pick potential changes before they happen to us. That's absolutely important. We are generally blind to the unexpected and to what is newly emerging. We are generally blind to the unexpected. Generally, that's why a lot of things take us by surprise. A lot of the time, something was building up gradually. The signals were coming, although they could be weak. We are generally blind to the unexpected and to the newly emerging. We have the famous story about Kodak, right? Kodak ruled the world of photography, right? In the 80s and 90s. And in the early 90s, their engineers became aware of digital photography. They became aware that it could become something. It was newly emerging. But the management believed that people would never really shift from printing out their pictures to just having digital pictures. Fast forward, Kodak filed for bankruptcy in 2012. Okay. So avoiding being blindsided by disruption is what I'm asking for as far as 2024 is concerned. Shell Corporation got that because, like we said last week, they employed PhD holders, futurists, just to explore the future, because of the volatility of their industry. And those ones eventually so got a good hang of it that it became a discipline in itself. We call it scenario planning. And the universities have had to actually take the curriculum from Shell, apart from the fact that Shell then has been able to thrive both in good times and in bad times in the oil and gas industry. So that is our own desire, right? For our clients, for everyone in our community, that in 2024, you're going to flourish. You're going to flourish both in good times and in bad times, both in the seemingly good situations and the seemingly bad ones. You are going to flourish. The key to it is scenario planning. Like I said, we call it scenario planning. It is a process through which leaders strategize for unknown variables, and then they make calculated business decisions. Okay? Through scenario planning, leaders strategize for unknown variables, because that unknown is what can kill your business, is what can blindside your career. That unknown. So can you imagine how many people actually suddenly lose their jobs and what that does to people? I have a very successful friend. He's a lawyer. And he told me how his former boss, he used to work for another lawyer, an older person who was very temperamental, right? If you annoyed him, he would sack you on the spot. You're fired. You're fired. Just like that. And interestingly, they found a way around it. His employees found a way around it. They would go beg his friends, and the friends would plead with him, and he would take the person back. Now, my friend said he had just rented a 3-bedroom apartment, and he spent all the money in his savings, in the savings account. And then he got that you are fired one day. And it had been really good. That had not happened to him, but it was his turn. He was fired all of a sudden. So, he knew he had no choice but to find a way to get back into employment. So he went to beg his employer's friends, and they pleaded with him. The man took him back. That awakened his consciousness, right? And he told himself, okay, I'm going to so organize my life that the next time this thing happens to me, I'm not coming back. And he did. And the next time he was fired, he set up his own chambers, right? So that is what a scenario planning does, right? That we are able to strategize for unknown variables. So that one was even a projection from a known potential disruption, right? How about the factors that we don't know? So we love to do this January of every year. Just get a few people in the room and do scenario planning and explore. There are various types of scenario planning, but the major thing is that they compare optimistic scenarios against pessimistic scenarios. If you have to choose one, I'll encourage you to choose the pessimistic one, because most times, because we humans can be very hopeful, most people actually play optimistic scenarios only. And then when something happens that they were not expecting, it knocks them out, right? Especially something negative. So, but this is it. This is what we do, at our scenario planning exercises. So we play the pessimistic scenarios. What are the potential bad things that could happen, right? Potential negative things. You'll be surprised. Our world is not a perfect place at all. And I know you've got to have some healthy esteem to do scenario planning, because exploring pessimistic possibilities, of the future could actually be touching on your self-esteem. It would look like, why are you so negative? Why are you expecting bad things to happen? And for some of us that are religious, or spiritual, honestly, it tends to run contrary to the principles of faith. So sometimes some of us faith people find it very difficult to do scenario planning, because in our own sessions, we say, stretch it to the limit. Those potential negative things that could happen, stretch them to the limit. You say, what if an earthquake happened? What if the president died, right? What if, and at that point, it will seem like, oh, why are you wishing that on someone? Why are you wishing something negative? But come to think of it, don't people die? It's practically predictable, but we're uncomfortable because it's a negative thing, right? See, the thing with wisdom is that it helps you to deal with both pleasure and pain upfront. That capacity to feel it long before it actually happens helps you to take a position, helps you to make decisions that actually decides how you will respond when whatever it is happens. That's the essence of wisdom. Most people become wise after the event, right? They say real vision is 2020. In other words, it is behind hindsight, that makes most people wise. But real wisdom actually figures it out before you get there. When you are wise, you cross bridges in fact, you get to rivers and build bridges, and you put your toll gate there long before your contemporaries get there, so that you are the one collecting the toll, right? So we say potential negative scenarios, stretch them to the limit. So we do the pessimistic scenarios, then we do the optimistic scenarios. Okay, we do pessimistic scenarios, then we do the optimistic scenario. Okay, what if our dreams came true? What if everything worked in our favor? What are the best things that could happen, right? And then sometimes you want to ask yourself, okay, let's actually look at the past. Let's look at the data. Look at the pessimistic ones, look at the optimistic ones, and ask which ones are actually more likely to happen, right? You have the ones that you call independent themed scenarios. And we do that also. We do that especially where you take specific factors and you explore them. For example, we take politics and government, and then we begin to imagine all the potential policy decisions that government could likely make. We do pessimistic, we do optimistic, right? So what are the sudden changes that could show up in the next, 1 year? Not long ago, in one of our organizations, we checked the scenarios like that, and then picked something about some potential big changes in currency rates, between two currencies. And then we just went ahead and bought quite a bit of one currency and then held the currency. And it came to pass exactly like we envisaged. Negative on one hand, yeah, negative generally for everybody, but For us, we had taken a position long before it happened, right? So independent themed scenarios. So in that particular instance, it was the economy that we were discussing, right? The economy or government policy. We also discussed technology, for example. Technology. You know, one of my CEO friends sent me something, you know, some days ago. He just took what I said in church, my teaching in church, and said he was testing a particular AI tool. I mean, within seconds, the thing just translated everything that I said in like 35, 40 minutes, and he had the translation. So he sent me the translation. I said, wow, AI tools. I know what it used to take for people to transcribe my speeches. And then, boom, right? I said, this thing is about to take jobs from people, right? That's why some people are scared about this whole AI scenario. So, technology. So like we spoke, I mentioned about BlackBerry and the iPhone. What are the technologies cooking right now? Because they're investing billions of dollars in R&D, right? So who knows? But some of us in the technology sector may be able to say, right, or be able to guess extreme negatives. What are the products that are going to die, right, in the next 1 year or 2 or 3? So this is what we do at our scenario planning exercises, you know, and once we identify, actually we split people into groups. We split the room into groups. Some people take social factors, because in some places, protests could just, you know, disrupt things, or a war breaking out, right? And then you find out you can't go to your shop anymore. Could be a fire incident, right? It could be flooding, right? Those are all the things that we need to factor in, right? So if any of those things happen, how is it going to affect us? How are we going to respond? How do we protect ourselves, you know, against sudden death? You may be thinking about insurance, right? You may be thinking about insurance, insuring yourself, right? Insuring your house, insuring your goods, right? And so on, right? So we split into groups, and then each group lists all those potential things that could happen. You have the environment, for example, that covers weather issues and so on. And then we bring everybody together. We get a report from all the groups. We collate everything. I'm telling you, when you are in the room, just being in the room and hearing all of those potential things that could go wrong, that could spring up suddenly in the course of the year, you're better prepared than the average person. But we go beyond that. Then I ask the people in the room, show me the money. Show me the money, because leaders and entrepreneurs have one thing in common. To us, problems are opportunities. Problems and opportunities are the same thing. What people run away from, that's what we run towards. That's where our promotion comes from. That's where our prospering comes from, right? So if war breaks out, so what are we going to do? Of course, you want to plan for your safety, the safety of your family. And then beyond that, what are the opportunities that come with that? Oh, sad to say, right? We pray war will not break out, but it does break out. And I should tell those of us that are people of faith, you can't have more faith than Jesus Christ, right? Because it's like, oh, why should we be exploring negative things like that? I reject it. You know. And Jesus Christ, the founder of the faith, said there will be wars and rumors of wars. There will be earthquakes. There will be famines in different places and so on. So these things are practically inevitable, right? We've got to have this discussion. But what I'm saying is, we help people to explore the potential problems and the potential opportunities that show up with them. And honestly, our people, I believe, make millions, just being better prepared than the competition, right? When we go through this exercise.